Hello everybody, this is the fifth in the series of videos about evidence-based ideas every teacher should know about. And here I'm going to talk about the idea from this superb book, Dan Willingham's Why Don't Students Like School, which he calls very famously that memory is the residue of thought. And that might seem obvious, so many ideas from cognitive science seem obvious, but actually it really does require a lot of thinking. So let me give an example. It's easy to give a counterexample, perhaps, to sort of show where it doesn't work and then to focus on where it does work. I once watched a teacher teach a lesson where students were learning about the electromagnetic spectrum. And they had some information on the sheet, which was telling them about the different features of the waves in the electromagnetic spectrum, radio waves, infrared, visible, ultraviolet, and so on. And they had some facts about it. And the students were being asked to complete a sheet where they had to fill the sheet, ostensibly searching the document for the information and transferring it to their sheet. And the students were then finding out that radio waves have the longer wavelengths, infrared has a certain wavelength and has certain uses, and completing this table. And I went around the class and I spoke to some students, and students were telling me that they had completed the task. So I asked a couple of students, well, tell me then, what do you know about radio waves? And they literally couldn't tell me anything at all. What do you know about microwaves? And they just didn't know. So it was possible, even in a very short term, to forget everything about what they had just been doing, because they had literally just been transferring information from A to B. They hadn't actually engaged in any cognitive process around that information. They hadn't thought about any of it really. It was they could have been copying gibberish words from one place to another and would have still had the same sense of task completion. So the illusion of task completion was held by pretty much everybody in the room. Now, of course, some of the students might have remembered the information, but we're not interested in some students learning some things. We want all of our students to learn everything that they're trying to teach, surely. So we need to engage students in thinking about the concepts that we are dealing with. So here they needed to do some thinking around microwaves. What are microwaves? What is their wavelength? What are they used for? Some kind of puzzle or some sort of process of putting these things in some sequence, discussing it, verbalizing, maybe spotting some errors, seeing whether or not their information was right or wrong compared with another source. It's anything which made them think and question and challenge at the level of the actual concepts themselves, not simply them at a kind of word level. Now, that applies to other things. In Dan Willingham's book, he talks about PowerPoint as an example of this. And I've had this experience myself, where you've seen teachers teaching, say, something about the Amazon rainforest, and they think, oh, it'd be a good idea to get the students to make a PowerPoint about the Amazon rainforest. So off they go. But the problem is the students aren't expert at PowerPoint. So actually a lot of the time they're thinking about font selection, how to embed images, transitions, and students can get quite carried away with those things because they're fun to do and they take their thinking time. So of course, wind forward, those students will remember that back in year 8, you remember we did that PowerPoint about the Amazon. But you ask them, well, what did you remember about the Amazon? What do you know about the Amazon? And chances are they're going to say, oh, I don't really know, I just don't remember. I don't remember the detail, I just remember we made a PowerPoint about the Amazon. And again, that's a chance you don't really want to take. If you really want them to learn some specific facts about the Amazon in detail and retain those, you need to engage with them in thinking about those facts. So you need to remove extraneous material which is going to impede that process. So you might want to get them to if you want to do a presentation, it would have to be very, very simple and actually make the thinking about where does the Amazon flow from and to, what are some of the sort of stories that you might tell about the Amazon, and focus on things which embed memory, like narrative structures and cognitive processing, which makes you actually question what you're thinking, evaluate your thinking, and test your thinking. All of those things are much more likely to succeed. There are lots of extension of this, but the key thing, and Dan Willing actually says in his book, he probably thinks it's the single most important conclusion from cognitive science for teachers, is to plan your lessons so that students will have no choice but to think about the material you want them to learn. Now that's a very, very strong message. So I have some of my recommendations. Go through your lessons if you've got them coming up and think, have I put anything in the way of them thinking about the actual material I want them to learn? And if you have, then reevaluate and keep it simple and go direct to the information that you want them to retain in the long term.